All right.
You're muted.
Who would like to facilitate today? I can do that. So what is in the agenda that it's more alive in you guys? I can get started too. I'm very keen on letting you guys know what's happening with stewarding, and I've been doing some structured interviews with people. So this is one of the subjects I would like to discuss today. John?
Comment on content and a comment on order of content. I mentioned the GSD format. Ants also brought that up. My framing for it would be, and I'm happy with Ant's framing too, but mine would be how to effectively open up our meetings for other folks leading key work to jump in. And some pieces that I think might be useful to think about in that are alternating the hours or having European-friendly meeting times, as well as how do we want to signal that invitation. That might be actually a conversation for later. And I added, and don't feel precious about any of them, but I would love to just check in about me stepping into Catalyst role, Misha not stepping into Catalyst role, and also if Catalyst conversations, I feel like it's good to be here in the GSD with our slowly transforming idea of GSD in the sense of holding active work in Inspiral, and that it's good to, and Susan being here as a Catalyst support person or alumni or whatever we're calling it. So anyway, those are a couple of things I'd bring up in the Catalyst piece. And then the improvements board and how we're using that. And also there's a lot of outdated stuff on there. I feel like there was a big usage of it like 6 months ago or 4 to 5 months ago. And then it seems it's dropped off quite dramatically. And so there's a lot of representation of 4 to 5 months ago. And lastly, if we wanted to quick touch base on gatherings, that one especially, I don't feel it's necessary. Then my thought, does GSD format, would it make sense to do that first or do that at the very end so that we like leave the most space for it? Or do we want to think of a time box now and try and make adequate space for it?
I would prefer doing the stewarding stuff updates first, and maybe just any other updates, like generic updates from our work streams first.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. I just added in a document to the agenda linked in that discussion point that you just mentioned, John, because I did a bunch of thinking about it as well, and my way of figuring that stuff out is you should think through things and write them up. So I wrote up a doc there. I've shared it with you in February already because I wanted to get some sense check on it, but yeah. I agree, let's kick into stewarding.
Cool. So I'll start giving you a bit of an overview of what's going on. We had 33 people opting into the stewarding process. I've created a regular check-in on Lumio. Each 2 weeks, I will invite people to say that they have scheduled already or not their meeting. On 2 weeks later, I will ask them to give some feedback of what happened. The idea there is by listening to experiences and what people are doing and what's turning them on and what's working, that we'll get the ball rolling more lively. This is not really happening. The numbers are going down, not going up. So I decided to go talk to people, both people who are within the stewarding structure, this official check-in spot and that have been assigned in this round, as well as people who have members or members assigned stewards. So my first understanding is that we should get this all together. So we should bring the people who have not opted in into the stewarding into the same container, because especially the people who are newcomers, they don't have a place to give feedback on their experience with stewarding. I've interviewed a newcomer that has not had any interaction with his steward, and in his understanding, stewarding is one of the main values he sees as a newcomer to Unspiral. So both being stewarded by someone and having the opportunity to share his knowledge with someone else would be something that would keep him on the network. This is one of the brightest humans I've met, and is totally aligned with us, and we're losing him because his steward is not keeping up, and we don't have a place to check in and give him another steward if this is happening. So I think we should get together with ops and get this list of newcomers on the last year or year and a half and who their stewards are, and I'll call those stewards and agree with them. Do you really want to do this? If you don't, can you find someone else? Do you want me to find someone else? So as to provide this service within the network. The other thing that came up on another interview is this idea that it's really easy to let the ball fall when stewarding happens only in between two people, so that we could have like stewarding home groups, 3 to 5 people, and this would keep the ball rolling much more easily. I don't think that one experiment competes with the other. I think we can have them both running at the same time. I'm already setting up one prototyping group to do this, so I'll keep you guys posted on how it is evolving. And if you feel like starting other ones, I'll be sharing all the experiences and ways we're doing this. And the last thing is I'm needing help to bring those learnings into the handbook. So I'm going to be putting out a request for help on Water Cooler and the help channel for someone to take all of those resources we have. We have a number of best practices for stewarding sitting there, but they are not yet on the handbook. And I think it would be really helpful if they were there, and if there were clear guidelines so that a steward D can say, hey, my steward should be calling me, but he's not. Who do I call? Well, that's who you call. You send an email to stewardingunspiral.com and we'll get you another steward, or we're going to mediate your conversation with your steward. That's me.
Thanks, Lucas.
Wow, Lucas, you've done so much work.
Yeah, appreciate it. I think I have that list somewhere of the stewards, who everybody's steward is. So I could probably share that with you straight away. Secondly, oh, interesting. I just got a reply from my stewardee. Just popped into my thing. I had a catch up with Erica Logi in Budapest this week, and I asked her if she was in the stewardship program, and she said she didn't know about it and that she still thought that stewards were only for members. So just wondering a couple of things, how we can boost that signal, and what the process for Erica to opt in at any time, and are you only doing it in intakes or cohorts, or so just really curious about how we can boost that signal.
No, shop always open 24/7.
So what should I have suggested to her?
Just had her flick me an email and I'll get her a steward.
Okay. Will you flick her an email, please? Thanks.
Or jump on the Lumia.
Can you send me her email?
Sure. I'll do it in the Slack now. Or I'll just forward it to you.
Lucas, it was like you were channeling Jorium just then with that little 24 hours comment. It made me laugh.
It runs in the blood, you know?
Yeah. That's interesting because it's been all over Lumio. So maybe Erica doesn't check Lumio. Did you ask her? Because a lot of people don't.
just like most people, you know, just in and out when she's got time. But you know, if you go, sometimes I think if you go offline for a month for one reason or another, you might just completely miss it. And I sense that that's probably what happened with her.
Lucas, I have a couple of quick thoughts to reflect back. One, you mentioned the handbook, converting the stuff into the handbook. I got a message from Simon Jarvis, who's sort of like, he's been in Inspiral for maybe 3 or 4 years. I've worked quite closely with him. He's quite introverted and he doesn't necessarily like putting his ideas out there, but he was like, oh, hey, I'm doing stewarding and I'd like to get some more resources. And he drafted a Lumio thread to try and get some stuff going. And it's got a little bit of action on it. There's some people sharing some ideas. So he was saying, oh, I'd like to type them up in the handbook. So he might be a person to connect with directly and just say, hey, we've got all this good stuff. We just need someone to convert it into the handbook. I think he'd probably be up for it.
Awesome.
And the other piece of the puzzle, which I think is really interesting and related, at the Inspiral dinner that we had in Melbourne, not this Wednesday, just gone the Wednesday before, Craig came and asked for some feedback on his idea he's been working on. So him and Tracy have been working on this thing for a while. And it's effectively, what I heard was basically an evolution of the thing that we were talking about a year ago in July when he was trying to hack together that stewarding thing with Nicholas. But what he's done is a bunch of research into what it takes for people to actually hone a practice together or learn a skill together. So things like if you want to learn yoga, or you want to learn a language, or you want to learn like do CrossFit and have a practice that you get better at. Often the way these communities form is you have one person who's like the leader and they have a huge broadcast relationship with a big community. So for example, like people like Natalie says that she's got her business, or there's a lot of people with business like that. And they basically become a personality profile business and they broadcast out to a community. There's certain things that make it really hard for people in that community to be able to engage with each other. In the same way in Inspiral, we have effectively a broadcast system now with you're the community person broadcasting out. And so he's trying to create an app that puts people into small groups that allows them to practice together. And it allows the lead facilitator to be able to create, like drag and drop to create the facilitation process for the people in the small groups. He's thought it through quite well with the technology. Like it's not going to be a web app, it's just going to be on mobile phones. And so that would mean something like a Inspiral stewarding home group on your phone, or a connection home group or something like that we could facilitate whatever the connections needed to be, and they would go out to all of those groups. So he wants some alpha testers. And I mentioned to him that this would probably line up really well. And the fact that you're already evolving towards that makes sense. So
that's a really nice idea. Yeah. Something that comes to me with I loved what you the two things. And I've spoken to Simon on the phone a number of times because there was some confusion on his forms. So I have his contacts. This will flow really nice. And I spoke to Craig yesterday night, so I also have his contacts. So it will be that it's two really good leads for me to follow. I want to come back a bit on what we were discussing before. So John was speaking of the Trello-like thing we have not being up to date, and now we are mentioning that Erica has not been following Lumio. What I feel is that it's very easy to lose touch with systems, and we have been focusing on systems. And I think that what stewarding does is connect us to what is alive. It is connect us to the people. And I think that we will have much better results in Unspiral if we focus on what is alive, on people connections. So I've been studying knowledge management and flow of practices, and the only thing that really works is people connection. If I call you, Ants, and say, Ants, you mentioned something to me the other day about an article you remember, you will immediately know the track to find that knowledge for me. If I try to find this on a database that you have set up, it's hell. So if we have quick references to the humans that hold the abilities, and we create this peer support, I think we are going to be much more effective in getting Unspiral flowing than focusing on systems. I think the systems have to be there too, but I think we are putting too much work on models and systems. A model, a framework is a map. It's not the reality. So if you're navigating and looking to the map all the time, you're going to hit a traffic light because you're not looking ahead. So I feel if we put effort into the connections of people, into creating touch points where we weave our community together rather than on the systems, we're going to be more effective. That's why I'm putting all my effort into stewarding.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, and I think the small group thing is, I think that's what we're looking at with the working groups as well. It's what I'm looking at with the peer incubator as well, as how do we create close groups of context. I was just going to mention, tag me in with Simon Jarvis, because I've also gone over some of that stewarding resources stuff, and also am keen to work with a more tech head on handbook, and would be just good for me to build the relationship.
Yeah, when you were talking, Lucas, it was like, oh man, it's that, like, we never really nailed the Kumu map for people to be able to actually see each other and see who's in the network and what they do and what working groups they're in and all that kind of stuff. But I think that would be really powerful to be able to enable what you're talking about. Because for someone like me, it happens naturally because I'm extroverted and I've been around for 5 years, and basically every door in the network is open to me. I just need to knock on it. And for others, it's not like that, So I just wonder how we can enable that more. And I think a visual map to be able to navigate that unknown terrain would be good.
The map is there. People just don't engage with the tool. I think that if we really put time into giving every person one point of contact, one steward that they can relate to, and even if they are beginners, every beginner has an area of expertise that they can offer to others. So this person I'm talking to, he's a genius on the global commons, He will add a lot to his stewardee, even though he doesn't have context of Unspiral. So it's just a matter of matchmaking, people with context, with people without context, and creating this network. The Kumu is there. If you go there, you'll see. It's just for people to engage and feel it. But it's so much easier for me to call my steward or even my stewardee that has context and say, hey, who in the network has a recruiting agency that can support me? Oh, who in the network does design? Then try to go into a map, read. Nah, it's people, It's this, I feel resonance when I hear Jorian. It's like he warms my heart. So I feel like calling him.
Yeah, nice. It's not easy, but yeah, you're right. So, what are the things to move ahead with this? Or what support do you need next?
I'm gathering a group to prototype the home group. I'm going to contact Malcolm and Charlie for the list. I'm going to schedule conversations with all the stewards from the last year and a half that are not within the system and bring them in. And I think we could, as a group, start voicing out to people, hey, would you like to join stewarding? And also, if the four of us get to keep a rhythm on reporting on our stewarding experiences on the Lumio, we'll keep the Lumio alive, you know, because the Lumio it's really dying. This last check-in, I had 3 answers. It went from 15 to 3, you know. So I think I'm going to reduce for a once a month, you know. Have you scheduled, and could you please tell us how it went? Not to create too much clutter. But if we could keep a rhythm, at least the 4 of us, you know, hey, this is what happened with my stewarding. That's the practice we're doing. This does well. This doesn't. Oh, it's really nice. Oh, it was quite frustrating. We can further this.
Just to be clear, your ask was if us 3 could post into the monthly check for the stewards.
Exactly. I was thinking on Phoebe and Dan too.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Anson, Susan, you for it? Into it? Able to? Open to it?
I thought I was doing it already, but I'll look to see if I've not done it recently.
No, it wasn't a comment on whether you had or not. Lucas was just wondering if we could commit to being diligent about it.
Sure. And I guess the question is, are you doing a new thread every month? Is that what you're saying? What you're saying, or is it just?
No, I'm keeping the same thread, but I'm opening either a check or a proposal every 2 weeks. And I think I'm going to reduce this to monthly so that people don't feel overwhelmed with too much communication, but it keeps a heartbeat there.
Cool.
Great. Yeah, I'll do it.
And Susan, when you throw Lucas the current stewards, if you want to throw that into one of the GSD channels, that'd be appreciated, just so I have a current list too, but sometimes it's not the current list.
Yeah.
I think it's a copy of the current list. And Lucas, I'm also going to toss you what I believe to be the current list of all contributors, which should include the date which they joined. This will be good, because I wanted to say yes and about the mapping tools, because like I go to the Inspiral, like what I call the Inspiral denizens list quite often to like reference who's all in this area or whatever, rather than be noisy and ask people. So there's sometimes when having like little tools or like when you set up that Lumio thread and start doing the monthly, like you might find it advantageous to have a nice flag at the top of the context that kind of says, this is what this thread's about. It's for all contributors. I'm going to do this monthly. Would love if you know, just those flags for when somebody like Erica comes in and like tries to catch up on all the Lumios really quick. You know, they're going to read the context first. But,
John, would you suggest a flag for me? I'm not completely sure if I get what you mean, but if you could suggest me one, I'll put it there. Like
sure.
I'm keen to get what you mean with a practical paragraph.
Yeah, for sure. We can collab.
Thank you.
Should we move forward?
Sorry, please, Ant.
I was just going to say, should we move on to the next thing?
Yeah, we have 7 minutes more for the hour. Are we going an hour and a half or an hour?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half. Awesome. So let's move to the next subject. John, do you want to start the exposure again?
I did want. How much time do we want for? Sorry, the noisy background. How much time do we want for the GSD format conversation? 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
It feels like a kind of a chewy one, but it feels like, I don't know, like I could probably talk through my sense of it relatively quickly, but it opens up quite a a chewy discussion. So I don't know.
I think so too. Maybe let's say 20 minutes and then check in on time at that and maybe extend it. And because my stuff can fall off the agenda, I don't mind too much.
Okay. Well, should we whip through the other stuff and see how we go?
No, I was saying let's jump into GSD and my stuff can fall off unless there was anything somebody else had.
Okay, well, maybe we could just quickly cover off. This is related as well, actually. I've got the gathering in August on my agenda, and not on my agenda, on my radar. And I don't know if, so we had a meeting where I think Damien and Sandra said they're going to pick it up and run with it. And then I booked in the time at Riversley, and the only weekend that they have free is the 10th to the 13th of August. So I penciled that in and then pushed it to the Gatherings working group and sort of like Damien to lead it. And I know he's busy, and I know that it seems like a long time away, but having organised a lot of these, it's not a long time away. And if anyone wants to fly there, it's tomorrow. So my impulse around wanting to change the GSD is like, whoever's organising that gathering or leading that gathering needs a support council like this in order to go, hey, this is what the Gatherings working group's up to, and this, we can give them some support in the same way that Lucas just gave us a good update and we were able to give him some support. So there's two things there. One is like, I don't have any capacity at all to do anything to do with that retreat other than show up, but we need it to happen, and it's on my radar. Maybe I just don't worry about it and make sure it happens. Maybe. The second is, what's the structure of this that we want to evolve to? And this is sort of dovetailing into the GSD reformat conversation, which is
and sorry, it's what are the dates you got?
The only weekends that I think it's Friday the 10th of August until Monday the 13th of August.
10 to the 13th. Awesome.
Yeah. So I've put it in the members group, and I've put it in the members group in Slack, and I put it in the Gatherings working group. But with stuff like this, it's really hard. Like back in the day when EXP wasn't running the Summerfest, it was always a bit of a mad rush to get retreats done. But a bunch of people would end up swarming around it, and it would work. It was just took some time, took some effort.
I can reach out to Damien and Sandra. I'll just direct message them and see if I can support and kind of spark it a little bit and get a sense for what's going on.
Cool. I've put my thoughts into the working group's gatherings thread about what it maybe could be or whatever, but there's not really any action in there at all. So I think to Lucas's point as well, there just needs to be a group gathering call or something. Like this is the closest thing to what it is at the moment. So if we move into that, like the frame for that reformat of, does that sound okay? Or is there anything else other than that before we move on?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would just take it off your headspace because I've got hours for Inspire right now, and I will connect with Sandra and Damien, and we'll see if there's a call that needs to follow from that, and it'll be great. Cool.
Yeah, awesome. Like it's not a complicated one. Getting 30 people to Riversley for a thing isn't that logistically difficult. It's more just it could be thrown together really quickly in 4 weeks, and it will basically just be people from around Wellington, or it could be given a bit more intention, and there could be people that come in for it. But yeah, with that in mind, my thinking around this GSD meeting, or changing it to more of a watering hole meeting, was basically just creating a space and a bass drum for people who are doing the work to show up, to be able to connect with other people doing the work and get some support and accountability. So, like we had that sort of thing with Kate where it was like, oh yeah, we're struggling to navigate around work that we don't know if she's doing it or not. And then when we did catch up with her, me, Susan, Dan and Kate, it was a really good meeting, and it felt really like important to have, and there were good actions out of it. So if someone like Damien was doing the Gatherings working group thing and there wasn't getting any action, and because the group doesn't really exist yet, if he had this as a space to bring it to go, okay, I'll bring it to the GSD council. This is what's happening. This is the help I need. It'll get a whole bunch of momentum. And I feel the same about, like, if somebody else other than Lucas was doing stewarding, I would feel the same about stewarding. So that was my intention. That's my thinking with it, basically.
Is that all the context you wanted to give around? Are we moving into the GSD format stuff? Sorry.
Yeah. So it's basically what you were gonna say, John, and then I've just put my thoughts in that document that's linked in the agenda.
Yeah, I think I gave my contact. I think the thing I'd gone over Ance's document, and just I think just keeping GSD a working group, like not making too many changes in terms of coherence, but making a clear signal. I guess I'm curious, what's that clear signal to people to be able to join in here? And I think the biggest thing that I was concerned about was commitment. And like, if we don't have a strong commitment and it's like, oh, exciting topic comes up, so we've got like a ton of people in here, maybe 1 or 2 meetings, and then it's just like 2 people and like some other people show up. Like, what does that look like? How does that impede, or what does that look like in terms of us getting work done? Because I guess I found it useful that we were all people who were committed. We originally committed to half a day of work on the network. What that's kind of rolled out to look like is we all have projects that are kind of centered in the network. And then the timing being the other thing that just seemed like the obvious, like this is the biggest challenge to making this happen in my mind.
One of the things that I have been thinking a lot is how, as I am more participant into the network, I keep on check if I'm opening space for people that do not have the same availability, so that I'm not reappropriating the network, and making it serve my own devices, my own desires. So I really like that you're naming this, so the bar for the GSD is this availability of this amount of time. I think that all of us give more than this, and I think it's important that we keep ourselves in check. Like, is this sustainable? Am I getting into a burnout? How do I voice this need? Like, I'm putting 3 days a week, and this is not only burning me out, but this is stabilizing the network of the work that has to be done. It's not, if one person is doing too much, we are not a resilient network, because if that person is not there, all of a sudden we crumble. So I think it's very important that we both voice this as well as become aware of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the challenging things for me personally, has been I always want things to go faster than they are, right? So when you do that within Spiral, or for me personally, it's very quickly it goes to burnout, because when somebody raises the pace of something, and it's driven by a sense that there's a lot of potential, right? It's because I'm like, holy shit, if we get this right, it could change the world, or it could, like really, really do a lot of good for a lot of us. So it's coming from a good place. But when you try and put your foot on that gas, it requires a lot of tired people to run faster. And it doesn't work. So there's a systemic thing there that we're actively trying to solve, which is, how do we sustain ourselves? How do we identify the key functions? How do we sustain the key functions? How do we move forward? So I think the 4 hours a week thing is really a really good one.
I feel, Ant, that a clear agreement on what the speed we are moving together is paramount. So we all know how important it is, the diversity of skills on our teams. But some of us are joggers and sprint runners. Some of us move really slowly, but those people, they bring a skill set and a perspective that is paramount for our work. So having clear agreements on which pace do we move allows the pack to move together and people don't feel excluded. If we rush with changes, people lose context and then we lose their very unique skill set.
I want to make space for Susan to respond, but I have a response to that.
I'm just listening.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll jump in.
I'm like, yeah, just listening.
I have a little bit of response to that of like, or just like a feeling of that feels rigid and therefore fragile a little bit, Lucas. Like I agree in some ways, but I'm also like, yeah, just thinking about a anti-fragile or resilient design that's going to be able to, like at different times, the people assembled are going to be wanting to go at different speeds. And so like institutionalizing or making a rule about the speed seems quite difficult. So I don't lean towards trying to formulate it that way.
Yeah, I didn't hear that though. I heard that it was more acknowledge and be conscious of the different things. And, you know, if you want to sprint, go sprint with the sprinters.
Yeah.
I'm not by any means proposing we institutionalize, just that we are aware of how those dynamics go together.
Yeah, sorry. I guess the other comment I wanted to make was like one thing that comes to mind is like in terms of like this being sustainable into the future too, is like I've got 3 months of Catalyst funding, and so like the solution pops up into my head like it wouldn't be too hard for me to be able to make happen like really good notes from this meeting that would make it really easy if people were not consistent in their attendance, that everyone could follow asynchronously, for example. But this maybe isn't a good way to go forward, because if after 3 months or even after 6 months we don't have funding for somebody to be doing really good with notes, that could significantly shake up the structure we set up. So just wanted to amplify that.
Could we do a test? Could we do a trial, which was like the next GSD meeting, just say to, like, assuming that we keep our rhythm going, so it's a yes and we say, right, if anyone else is leading a piece of work inside any of the Inspiral, and you want some support on that, bring it to this meeting, and it's at this time in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm keen to see if we can. I guess that's one of the things that seems like practical that we might be able to accomplish. Maybe this meeting or at least by next meeting, of having it switch back and forth and putting out a little bit of a call, even if it's just mostly shoulder taps now, for like, hey, I see you doing work. We're opening the GSD meeting and we're trying to make it more accessible to European folks on a rotating basis. Here's the next one. Hope to see you. And so,
I mean, does anyone have any strong opinions about?
I just wanted to come back to the commitment piece, because I think I maybe got distracted by voices behind me, maybe. But the idea would be to keep a sense of like, this is very loose, but like we're aiming for people who are jumping in to be generally contributing, hanging out, doing Inspiral stuff. 4 hours a week, or holding a big project. Would that be kind of what you're thinking of the messaging, or what folks are getting from that? Muted.
I would probably, yeah, I guess so. I think I would probably just start by directly shoulder tapping the people that we know are doing some work that would probably benefit. And so the first two people are like, well, Damien and Sandra, maybe if they're doing the retreat, or Damien if he's sort of leading the first part of that, and the people who are organising the. I mean, I've checked in with Kate and Francesca about the external funding campaign and what they're doing there, so we've got clarity on that, and that's just happened organically because we had to do it to line it up with the book, and I've got a lot of context at the moment. But like Dan doing the venture stuff or the website stuff, like if he knew that he was plugging in to give updates on that, that would allow him to do more by doing less. Yeah, I'm sort of still using a frame of what are the key working groups we have, who would need to plug in from each one of those working groups. Maybe we could just do a quick canvas of who those people might be and see if it works, I think.
On the same line, I'm trying to support Matti Schneider to do the work groups renaming that he proposed. He was proposing to reorganize the namings and the channels on Slack to be more welcoming to newbies. And we had little feedback to him. And I feel this could be a really nice way for him to start engaging. You know, he's quite keen to support us and to be a part of the network.
Great.
I really like his skill set. So
What's his name?
Matti Schneider.
Is he the French guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that Inspiro was built for.
Exactly.
He's got a lot of capacity, a lot of capability, and he shows up to everything with a lot of energy. And every single thing that I organised in Wellington, he showed up for. Even just a casual, like, drop something into the Wellington Slack saying, I'm going to have drinks at this time. He showed up. Yeah, I totally agree.
He's been with us for 10 days here in Auckland now. So we are connecting quite well, and it's been quite nice.
I just wanted to say something on some of these assumptions. I think that kind of reorienting ourselves as supporting people that are doing the work is like feels good and right, but how do we get the balance between it feeling like just an additional layer of accountability? Like when I think about Kate, for example, she's like super clear. Yes, she needs our help, but the thought of like actually having to turn up and come to another session is like she didn't sign up for that. And I don't know if it's just like a geography thing or just like her being protective, as she is really good with boundaries and her time. I'm just curious about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, totally. I think I'm trying to think about it from a systems perspective more than a specific human's perspective. But I've just dropped that note into the chat, and down the bottom of that is a diagram of the working groups with a green ring through them, and it's the green ring that I'm talking about, which is currently missing. And I think my feeling is that this meeting is like, if you look at that diagram, this meeting feels more like the green ring going through all the working groups than it does another working group. So I think that's what I'm getting at. And the work that people are doing as volunteers, basically, is in those working groups.
Yeah, I think to your point, Susan, like I think to how my local community manages around it, because we've got every Sunday we've got like a 3-hour meeting. Sometimes it's like 5-hour meeting, and it's like all the projects are showing up to it, and we've been working on the design, trying to condense it more, and it's a very oral tradition community too. So there's some differences, but I think one thing that they do to that I think enables it to not have that like edge of like, oh, I'm responsible for every single meeting then is they actually, I mean, one, they've got a core committed group that's always going to be there, but then other people who just are trying to bring in an agenda item, they do try to serve them up. And I think, yeah, there's always striking a balance of like how much do we organize to accommodate people and use our energy for that. But I think like for a Kate, for example, yeah, it might be worthwhile at certain times being like, hey, we'll definitely try and cover your thing. And, you know, like if you post a message, we'll definitely try and make room for it at the head of the agenda so that you don't have to be there for the whole meeting, or, you know, try and have people there for the check-ins, I think, at least, probably, if we can. But that would be my response, is try and be accommodating. And yeah, I do feel like getting good on the notes game is gonna help a lot. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's not the important thing to think about here though. But I do yeah, I guess I still have a little bit of the concern of like, oh, if we start lowering the commitment of like, oh, we're not expecting people to come here every week, I think it's important for there to be a core of people who do maintain the context, I guess, or something like that, or that's possible and capable of like. But I mean, if we all feel dedicated, or if we feel like there's enough dedicated people to host the meeting in a meaningful way, like obviously I'm quite dedicated to it, have been for a minute. A lot of us are here have. Yeah, anyway.
So, how does that, I really like this thinking. I like the green ring thinking. But I'm feeling like it's getting closer to where we got to with the catalyst definition, which was as we started to move away from doing the work directly to more being that green ring that's noticing and helping the work get done. And so my question is it the same thing? Is this green ring GSTD and catalyst, or is it just really catalyst?
Yeah, I have a strong opinion about that. And that there's no way that I would show up to that meeting if I wasn't doing some work, me personally. Like, I'm not interested in the work of the catalyst stuff if the catalyst stuff isn't doing work. And I know Dan feels very much the same. So I think, Susan, it's both. My suggestion would be that the catalysts hold the rhythm and the bass drum and facilitate it and make sure that the meeting happens and do some prompting and some priming. And the people who are doing the work show up as people doing the work. Because if people show up wanting to help other people do the work, that's great, but we only need one or two of those at the most, or even one.
And
that's my strong opinion.
I also have like a strong mental picture that maybe I'm sure everyone's got a different picture, but like from a while ago, and this I had read through like viable systems model from Stafford Beer, and he's got this sense of there's one system, which I think is this GSD system, that is about optimizing the synergy between the different operational units. So that would be like the working groups in this case. Oftentimes that he calls it the third system, unimportant, is oftentimes like helping with resource distribution between them. One example of a process that would fit in that category is like schools have a schedule, have blocks that people fit their classes into. So that's a tool that helps the different entities that are planning classes to synergize with one another. So like budgets can help with that sort of stuff. And I've seen the Catalyst is playing some of those third roles, but playing more of the sort of like helping operational units individually, more to like with conflict resolution, with like homeostasis. And so it's kind of like less the green ring, more they're a point, but they have their finger in each of the working groups. So they're like the direct support line, and almost you could say they're doing the support work too for the green ring, in a sense of like, we're going to help you be stable by making sure that, you know, supporting to make sure that there's a good cadence, making sure there's at least a little bit of a notes thing happening for people to follow along. I don't know if that resonates for other folks.
I think it sounds like it makes sense. The most important thing is that it would make sense to you, and you could make it make sense to others. I am a big fan of shared pictures. So my impulse or my work from here to move this forward would be to continue to shape that as a picture and a story. And I've been working on just as a quick thing, yay or nay, like it's part of the piece that I'm writing for the book, around the community as the business, is to put forward a model of how the community could operate as a business, or vice versa. And mapping out all of the functions that we want to hold as Inspiral to feel that we could hold about 100 to 200 people, and mapping them back to working groups and creating at least a theoretical structure as to how the whole system would work. Feels like a big intellectual piece of work for me, and something that I'm interested in and wanting to do for the book anyway. So I'm wondering about doing that as an internal document that says, hey, this is the flow of how we see all the pieces coming together. So just interested if anyone else has any opinions about if that's a good thing to do or not, or any concerns, or because it'll continue towards the flower petals with the green ring direction, but then adding in the Catalyst stuff that you mentioned, John.
For me, I'm thinking like, if you get some energy around it, I'm into it. Like, I think right now, and this is early, and I'm still checking in with people about how I should move forward as a Catalyst to be most useful, but I'm like looking for opportunities for people engagement, for deepening my map of the territory in terms of who's here, who's active, what are people interested in. So I might jump into something like that if there was energy around collaboration around it. But I also might lean right now in my personal, I'm like thinking about peer incubator, and maybe starting another little learning circle. I'm thinking about the stewarding groups, and kind of more just embodying what you're talking about, and maybe then syncing up with you to document a little bit of it and feed it into the picture, maybe just through these meetings. Yeah.
Sounds good.
So we've got 8 minutes left.
Shall we work on a 2-minute checkout, or is there something else that is pulsing in your view?
I wonder if there's an action point that comes out of this thing. Are we feeling like we got enough clarity to expand the invitation and pick a time that's more European friendly for our next meeting and start alternating back and forth?
Next maybe. So like the meeting coming up that's already in diaries, let's keep that. And then the one after that in a month, maybe we do that.
good with
I'm
me.
happy both ways.
So Ants proposes not next time, but the time after. We set it for Eurocentric timing. And Ants, was your proposal, we can start inviting people in who are holding key work now to the very next one.
Yeah, let's test it out.
Cool. Any concerns? Cool. I think to give Lucas the time, it would be nice to have a nice checkout. It'd be, I'll try and ping you guys with some possible times, I guess, and try and do the scheduling work for that one. That's a month out.
I'm also okay to extend a couple of minutes and do it now. I don't know how you guys are with your agendas.
It'd be good for me to finish up as quick as we can.
Yeah. I think maybe we just check out. I think we can do it asynchronous pretty good.
Yeah, let's do that because I got to shoot as well.
Would you like to start, Susan?
Yeah, I really have appreciated this conversation. I feel, heaps of stuff's going on for me right now. And I just really appreciate this space that we can continue to be iterative and figure out what the best thing to do is. Because we haven't quite landed on it yet, but at the same time, I'd love to get to that place of, I think you said it, John, homeostasis, where we can actually be rolling on something and feeling good about it for a while. It's not that I don't feel good about it, but just seems like hard work right now. But I'm here. That's me. Thanks. Lucas.
So I'm on this space where some days is really hard to be moving slow, and other days it really pays off because I managed to find my center and really deliver what I'm aiming to do in a very concise and efficient way. So I'm learning to accept that there are days that are like winter, and nothing happens and I'm all recoiled, and other days it's full harvest, and everything is flowing. So yeah, I'm feeling very good today, both with our meeting and with the sun. John, please.
Yeah, I totally hear you, Susan, on the, it feels like hard work, but I agree it also feels like progress every time. And I think feeling grateful for y'all right now. I especially felt grateful just like in our check-ins of just like, gosh, this is just like such a lovely group of like really contemplative, like complex humans who are doing really cool shit, just like in different ways too, like Lucas is being very internal, Susan's being kind of in between, Ant's outwardly focused in some ways. And appreciated today that we were able to raise some stuff, maybe conflicting views, and not need to resolve them, but still find some action points and things. I thought that was useful. I like the action steps we got on. This gave me a bunch more to do with my Inspiral hours this week. That's helpful. And last thing I'll just share, doing some of the outreach work around the new financial model on a call with Charmaine, and just hearing from her again, like a lot of what she has gotten out of the Inspiral community and continues to get is, paraphrasing, like being seen and just like being in community and being among peers who like get that urge to do social good work and stuff like that. And so yeah, it's good to be here and be seen by y'all. Ants.
Nice. I think I'm just personally at the moment struggling a little bit with how much time I'm putting all over the place, and this internal narrative in my head that if I just keep doing this, I'm just going to burn out because I'm not making really any money at the moment, and I'm not really, and I'm spending a lot of time on stuff that isn't going to make me any money, and I'm just concerned about that as a pattern. So there's that. But saying that as well, I think this work does feel very close to the work that I am doing with the book stuff and need to continue to be pushing. So it's not a gripe on this book group or this formation. It's more just an internal thing that I need to be just more expensive with my time a little bit. And I think, Susan, that's probably why I was like also feeling for you with someone not showing up for 6 months of a year of your relationship with them. Like, it's just not good enough. So I'm sort of in that space. But one thing I will say is, and that feels really good, is like homeostasis and a point where the system is just sustaining would be revolution for us as Inspiral and actually the world. So let's go for that as a revolution. Like, fuck it. We're not going to grow. We're going to be homeostasis for a while. That would be amazing.
Awesome. Hugs, y'all. Lovely to see you.
See you soon.
Ciao, ciao.